It's a special edition of PFT PM, and joining us on this Wednesday afternoon, the general manager of the Buffalo Bills, a team that hadn't been to the playoffs for a very long time. But once Brandon Beane took over in 2017, 2 out of 3 years to the postseason, entering year 4, and Brandon joins us now. Good afternoon, Brandon. How's everything?
That's good, Mike. Just getting used to quarantine life as we all are, the new norm.
What's been the strangest part of the adjustment for you?
Just, it's March and, we're in April now, but it feels like where did March go? We're usually on planes, trains, automobiles, in and out of hotels from pro days to privates and you miss the interaction. We've bounced to learn how to use Zoom and FaceTime and all these other features that we're even using right now. But you do miss the personal one-on-one interaction with the players, up close. We're having to, do it technology-wise.
Yeah, no pro day workouts, no private workouts, no in-person meetings, no visits from players. Which of those three things is the biggest one, the hardest one to lose as you prepare for picking players coming up in a couple of weeks?
I go back and forth. I really miss the 30s, the guys that we can bring into our facility and just let a lot of people in our building touch them, so to speak, from the guy who picks them up at the airport to your PR staff to the coaching, your trainers. Just, one of those things I like is I spend 15, 20, maybe 30 minutes with the player, but he's there all day. And so I'll circle back with a lot of our staff and just how was their interaction with him? Was he personable? Was he professional? Was he on time? Did he communicate well to our travel staff? Just learning who this individual is beyond who they are in front of me or Sean McDermott.
That's one of the things that fans don't realize and players don't realize, especially when they're early 20s. When they get in the car, right, from the airport to the facility, whoever's driving is listening, watching, paying attention to everything, and will report back on how that individual behaves. And it's amazing how few of those guys are prepared to be the same guy that they're going to be when they show up in your office and to be that same person when they're in the backseat of the vehicle being chauffeured from the airport to the team's headquarters.
No, it's fun. And you know what I've found is sometimes the guy picking him up at the airport or the hotel, pick up one or two other people with him and see who interacts with him, who doesn't even want to talk to him, who's griping about their coaches from their college, who's happy with their agent or not happy with their agent. Just, is a certain player, is he complaining about everything or is he just appreciative of the opportunity? Those are the little things that we probably will lose in this process.
But, and it's funny now. If we ever do get back to normal, and who knows at this point, we're letting out some secrets. The agents are going to tell the players to act like they've been given the Miranda warnings. We're in the back of the car now. They're going to finally realize that they're paying attention to everything that they're saying and doing. For you personally, being at home now, trying to do all of this stuff, not at the facility, not traveling, but confined to your house, what's been the hardest part of that adjustment?
I think the hardest thing right now is we're doing our meetings with our scouts and we're starting to include our coaches a little bit just to get their feedback. And, we usually like to watch film this time of year together. If we're arguing over, 2 or 3 linemen, let's say, and, we're not settled on it, well, let's pick 2 games where maybe they played similar opponents or they went against the same defensive end or defensive tackle. And let's just watch them against some of the things because these guys come from different conferences, different playing levels. So I think that's one of the things that we found, you just can't do it. I cannot watch group film with everybody because it just doesn't work over the technology. So we've had to improvise as all 32 teams have. But at the end, Mike, I think we'll still be fine and we'll get to the right answer.
I've had some folks tell me they actually prefer being at home because you don't have to worry about people showing up in your office. You don't have to worry about noise outside of your office. You can actually focus on your work. Now, some people working at home can't get anything done because their families are everywhere that they go. What's that balance been for you, being able to focus on your work but also deal with the fact that you're home with your family?
Yeah, it's definitely different. I told a couple of our people in our media last week when I was talking to them, I got 2 high school boys, Mike. So it's not that I have to worry about changing diapers or anything like that, but I've never had this many lunches and dinner, in the month of March or April with them. Usually it's only the month that we're off before training camp that you're around them this much. And so it's been fun. I got one that's going to be a senior next year. So you realize, man, I'm not going to be able to spend this time. So I've tried to turn it into a positive from that standpoint.
And I'm curious, Brandon, especially with a kid who's in that age group, and you feel a different way. Life is different. You're more inclined to feel like you're invincible, you're immortal, you can do anything, and then all of a sudden the bubble gets popped with this reality that is dropped on everyone's head. It's got to be a tough adjustment for a kid. It's got to be just that cold splash of water. What have been the challenges of trying to get him to understand that, at a time when he's living life to the fullest, or at least trying to, he's got to stay home all the time?
Yeah, I think it's hard because he plays football and he doesn't have a spring sport, but just they do 7-on-7s and you're not around your teammates. This is a time of year they can get in the weight room and lift and just same thing that our players are missing. So I think those are the things. Does he miss the schoolwork? I doubt it. They're having to do everything remote online like we are, but I know even though he won't admit he misses school. You definitely know he misses his friends and the camaraderie, like we all do, like we miss being in the workplace.
Before we get much farther, I want to shine a light on the great things you're doing with the United Way in your area. Because look, one of the things that dawned on me last week when the news came out that the Patriots had gone through all the hoops necessary to get 1.2 million N95 masks from China, it dawned on me. We all have a way that we can make a difference in our communities. And we can do it in different ways at different levels. But as long as we find something to do, that's the positive that comes out of it. And you found a great way to help out your community. Tell us what you have going on.
Yeah, so Mike, same thing. I was trying to figure out, obviously I'm not a medical worker or a frontline type person for something that we're dealing with, but you figure out what donation you're comfortable making, and then beyond that, it just doesn't feel like it's enough. So, with the help of Derek and my PR staff and our community relations department, they came up with some ideas, and so we're going to try and give some experiences, along, with the draft. One of the prizes I think will be really cool for whatever lucky fan wins it. Well, they're going to be on the phone with me when we call our first selection, which will be in the second round since we traded the first one. But that, and then after the draft is over, I'm going to have a one-on-one Zoom call with a fan and just talk through each pick that we made, Mike, and how we came to that decision. And we've got a couple other things once we get back to norm with a lucky fan's going to be able to bring some guests to have lunch with me at our Ad Pro Center, and then one's going to be able to come to practice, and we've got some memorabilia, Josh Allen jersey, and a couple other things.
And how can folks get more information about this if they want to get in on? Is it an auction or is it a raffle?
So what it is all you have to do is donate. It's wnyresponds.org, and if you go to that website, no matter what, $5, $10, $20, if you donate $5 or you donate $500, no matter what you're able to contribute, you're in this raffle, and it goes, Mike, until April 17th.
I look at one of the prizes on here. One of the winners gets 4 100-level tickets to the Bills 2020 home opener, and I know that that's still months down the road, but from your perspective, what kind of information have you gotten? What kind of ideas do you have as to whether or not there is going to be a home opener, and if there is one, whether or not fans are going to be in attendance?
Yeah, I think it's still too early, Mike. We haven't been given a lot of information, at our level. I think it's still such an unknown, as you were mentioning earlier. Like, where are we on the mountain on this thing? When do we get to the top and head back the other way? So I think right now everyone is just playing as if we're going to try and have a season. I think a lot of that to be determined. How many games is a 16-game season? Is it less? Will fans be able to fill the? Will you be able to have 70,000? Will you be able to even have 10,000? I think all of those are a lot of the unknowns, but my focus has really just been on the draft, Mike, and that's coming up here in a couple of weeks. After that, I think I will start to dig in and see what it looks like.
Now let's talk about the draft. One of the concerns that I saw raised by, I believe it was Ravens coach John Harbaugh, the possibility that Zoom video conferences can be hacked, other information can be pilfered electronically. How realistic is that possibility in your estimation?
Yeah, I do think it's realistic. I think there's ways. I learned the other day, if you're using Zoom, they have waiting rooms and password protected. So I think that will help. What you read in the news, where some people were hacking into some of these school Zoom classes and doing certain things. So I think we have to be mindful of that. I've already spoken with Dan Evans, our IT guy. I've told Dan he's going to be the MVP of this draft, since it's a virtual draft at home. If the technology is not working, we're in trouble. But Dan is researching different ways and what is the most secure means for me to contact with my scouts, my ownership, my trainers, whoever I need to talk to.
I'll tell you what, Brandon, one thing that I've been saying about that, if any team out there tries to take advantage of these unprecedented circumstances and why we're in this position, to turn that into a way to cheat, a way to find out information that they have no business of getting, and they get caught, they should get the worst punishment that the NFL ever metes out, because we're in this predicament because of the greatest public health crisis of our time. And if someone tries to cheat that system because of why we're here, they deserve everything they get.
I couldn't agree more. There's no tolerance for it, and would be totally unacceptable, especially in a time like this, as you said, Mike, when nobody asked for the situation we're in to be drafting like this.
Hey, Brandon, there's been a lot of talk about how technical issues may or may not impact the draft, and there's been reporting that if there's any type of technical difficulty for a given team, hey, too bad, there are other ways to get the picks in. But my understanding is if there's a complete and total breakdown, if you have a generator outside your house that gets struck by lightning or whatever the case may be, and you just lose power, that the NFL isn't going to say, too bad, we have to keep going. Can you give me an understanding of what the rules will be if there is some catastrophic technological breakdown and a team like the Bills just can't get a pick in?
Mike, they haven't explained, but I know to this point there is going to be some type of dry run, and I think those questions will get answered. I mean, at the end of the day, I think the league has to, have an option. If all else fails, you lose your Wi-Fi, you lose your power to be able to use your cell phone and call in a pick. And I think it'll be important for everyone to, to have a backup plan if you do lose power. To have your board manually with you just in case technology does fail.
And what kind of technology are we talking about? Everybody's got Wi-Fi in their house now. Is there going to be like the old hardwired internet with the Ethernet cord that plugs into your computer as a backup to the Wi-Fi? Because I'm just trying to think of everything that could come up, and I think the NFL needs to be thinking about everything that could come up. And one thing is Wi-Fi goes down. You want hardwired internet as that fallback.
Yeah, I think you do have to have something to that sort. Again, I'm not the most tech savvy guy, Mike, but I know my IT guy has been at my house as much as me lately, just trying to sort through what's the best options, and where to run cabling and things like that for these backup plans, whether it's a generator, backup Wi-Fi, hardline, all the things that you would need should something go wrong.
How much time will you spend practicing how this all unfolds when you're on the clock, if you need information from a specific person, a button to press, a person to speak to, just almost like a conductor of this process? I assume that's what your job will be, but you're going to have to get a lot of different information in real time. How much of that will you rehearse and practice in advance of the draft?
No, Mike, we definitely will. I think the week of, definitely by that Monday, our draft board will be set. We usually try and set it close to a week out, but definitely by that Monday prior to the start of it on Thursday, we'll be doing a lot of dry runs with everybody that's involved. Again, from the scouts to the coaches, to my medical staff, security, if I got any questions there, just everybody involved. And again, obviously my IT guy, Dan Evans, he's going to have to be there every step of the way.
The length of the draft, it's been 7 rounds, I think, since 1992 or thereabouts. Used to be 12. Before that, it was even more. Kevin Colbert reportedly suggested recently that 3 more rounds be added this year because of the difficulties in gathering information. Any position by you on whether or not there should be extra rounds?
I understand Kevin's point, and listen, Kevin's got a way more seniority than I do. So if he really wanted that and there was a lot of push for it, I would support it. I'm operating, Mike, that, it's going to be 7 rounds like normal. And I think the biggest change will be, used to when you're doing free agency like that, after the 7th round, you've got everybody still in your draft room or at least down the hall now trying to communicate, because you only have so many dollars that you can allocate from a bonus. And so a lot of times you got several deals going, and once you agree to one, you got to pull out of the others. If you're chasing, an offense, if you're chasing 3 tackles, hoping to land one, if you've offered 15,000 to one and maybe you're talking 12,000 the other, but you don't want them both. Once you get one in the boat, you got to kind of back out of the other. So it's a moving target. I think that will be, an obstacle for all teams as we work through it remotely.
And it's going to be even harder to allocate those dollars for the signing bonus for the undrafted players, because you're not going to have the same level of confidence in the information and the study and the workup for those guys that didn't get drafted. So as much as the draft is a crapshoot, I feel like undrafted free agency is going to be even more of a crapshoot this year.
Yeah, I think you're right, because one of the things is we don't have the true medical of these non-combine guys, and guys that maybe suffered an injury this season, a torn ligament, a shoulder, anything like that, Mike, that we haven't been able to see the player or bring them in or get our hands on them. Those would be guys that I could see potentially falling, either on our boards or other teams' boards.
And then there's the reality that the offseason programs aren't going to start. I personally think at this point there won't be any offseason programs. How do you get your guys ready for a season? And I know you were in Carolina the last time this happened with no offseason programs in 2011, Coach Rivera's first year. But how do you get guys ready? How do you get undrafted players ready? How do you get anybody ready if you don't have an offseason program?
Yeah, it's hard. They're working through this now with the PA, Mike, and having virtual meetings. Maybe you can meet for 2 hours using the same things, these Zoom technologies or Teams or whatever. But I think the real hard part, Mike, is going to be the workouts, the physical part of it. How do you, train for speed? How do you do? Some guys live in apartments; they don't have room for, even a bench, to lift heavy weights. And your big guys, your linemen, they need to lift weights. Those are probably the guys I worry about the most. Just having, the accessibility to weights and bars and things like that. Not as much as the skills. I think the skills can get out and use bands and find fields to run in and things like that. But it's definitely not an ideal scenario, and it will be a true test. If we don't have an off-season program come August, let's say we do start in August, to see who's most prepared. Because in 2011 there were a decent amount of injuries. Achilles came to mind, and I believe ACLs were up that year. So a lot will tell on who was truly working this time when it's truly voluntary.
When the draft begins in 15 days, you won't be making a pick in round one unless you trade back in. You've given that first-round pick to the Minnesota Vikings as part of the Stephon Diggs package. What will you be doing the first round of the draft since you're not going to be on the clock?
Well, I joked again, Mike, with the media the other day. We may put up some Stephon Diggs highlights or something. Just I'm looking at that as our pick because we talked about what would be available at 22, and again decided to trade some assets to move up. So again, I'm looking like Stephon is our pick, and we won't be in round one, but we'll be ready for round two on Friday night.
Well, and Brandon, here's the point I made a couple of years ago when the Cowboys traded for Amari Cooper near the end of his rookie deal. The reality is you give up a first-round pick for a player who is a veteran and is on a second contract. In Diggs' situation, I mean, you've got him for 4 more years, but it's relatively high salary, and at some point he's going to want to reopen that deal and get himself a raise. What's your policy on when you will go back and redo a deal that has multiple years left, in this case 4 more seasons left on the Diggs contract?
Yeah, I mean, I think, those things, if you trade for a guy, sometimes you do make, an agreement with a player I've been involved with before where you trade for him and you say, hey, we will do something to the deal now. We'll do something to the deal in a year or whatever. So, again, those are discussions that, we'll keep between us and the agent and the player. But, we do think, that was attractive to have Stephon under contract for 4 years. And that was part of why we made this move, to try and acquire him. And we just, at the end of the day, Mike, we thought that, with the offseason being, either limited or no offseason, what we would be able to get at pick 22 might have a harder time coming in helping us this year versus a proven veteran like Stephon.
And from time to time, Stephon had, I don't want to say issues in Minnesota. I mean, look, every receiver wants the ball, and sometimes when they don't get the ball, they get upset. And I think the Vikings did a good job of keeping that under control. It could have been worse. We've seen other situations where it has been worse. What did you do, Brandon, to get to the point where you were comfortable that Stephon Diggs isn't going to be any type of an issue, any type of a problem in your locker room?
Well, I mean, obviously, you never really know, Mike, until you get them in there. But our college scouting director, Terrence Gray, was in Minnesota when they drafted Stephon and was around him for a year, I believe. And then we have some coaches, at least one on staff that's close with one of Stephon's college coaches and knows a couple people. So we did some recon, and again, I understand the question. I think it's fair, and you alluded to it. Receivers want the ball, and sometimes they express that, and it can come across in the wrong way. And again, we feel good. We think he's a very competitive young man. My understanding is he trains very hard, practices, he raises the level of competitiveness at practice, and I don't think you can have enough of that. And I think our culture, will be good for Stephon, and we look forward to bringing him in. I know Josh Allen has been communicating with him a lot, and those two are looking forward to getting together and getting on the same page.
Chris Sims and I were talking the other day about your draft needs, and we debated the status of Devin Singletary, obviously a guy you drafted last year, allowed you to move on from LaShawn McCoy. But, I look at Singletary as a potential workhorse. Sims' position is maybe it's going to be a platoon going forward, and maybe you need some complementary help. Well, how do you view Devin Singletary moving forward? Is he a workhorse tailback for you, or do you envision having multiple guys who'll be sharing the load?
I think Devin can do either or. He's an unselfish player, Mike. But I think if we want him to be the workload guy, I think he could definitely do it. I think year two is going to be better for him. He had the hamstring injury early in the year, which cost him. I think if he had not missed those 3 or 4 games, he really could have pushed it closer to 1,000 yards. And again, I think he can do it. We're always looking for competition though too. So if the right guy was there, we wouldn't hesitate to add him. But again, if we roll in, we feel good with TJ Yeldon behind him. TJ started some in this league and is a versatile 3-down back as well. So we feel very comfortable with those two, as we head in.
You know the importance of a franchise quarterback. You had one in Carolina. You have one now, I believe, in Josh Allen, and he's only going to get better and better. Cam Newton's been available for the last 15 days or so. How surprised are you that the 2015 NFL MVP, one of the best quarterbacks in football when healthy, is just out there? And there's been no one linked to him in the 2 weeks since he's been a free agent.
Yeah, it's not something I would have never seen. I don't know if I think it's partly due to the situation we're in as our country because he's had 2 years where he wasn't fully healthy and missed pretty much all of last year. I think there is some concern there, and I think Cam sometimes can be a little misunderstood. But I'm a Cam Newton fan, Mike, and I hope that I believe he's earned the right with what you mentioned. He's an MVP, and again, I probably wouldn't be sitting in this seat if it wasn't for Cam Newton and the success we had in Carolina. That's how you end up in head coaches or GM positions. So very appreciative of Cam. And I do think in the end, sounds like maybe they're waiting till after the draft to see where some of these quarterbacks land to give him a shot to start. And I think he's going to come back with a chip on his shoulder. Assuming he's healthy, I wouldn't be surprised if he's not starting for somebody in 2020.
And if I'm a GM with another team and I'm trying to figure out what to do with Cam Newton, and I've determined he's healthy. We've done the physical, right? But I'm concerned about his ability to stay healthy. If I call you up and I say, hey, Brandon, give me a sense. Should I be worried with all the injuries we've seen from Cam Newton over the years, his playing style, very physical? Should I be worried, even if he's 100% right now, that he's not going to stay 100% for long?
No, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I think Cam has adjusted his style. I don't think he even before he injured, the shoulder and all that, I don't think he was running as much as he was in, 13, 14, and 15. I think, my last year in Carolina was 16, and, he got hit a couple times early in that season in the Denver game. And, he stopped running as much, at least it seemed to me that he did. So I think Cam, again, I think he will adjust his style and I think he just needs a chance. I think honestly, Mike, the kid, he's got a chip on his shoulder. I think he just needs an opportunity.
You've said that the Patriots are still the team to beat in the AFC East, and I understand that, but there are a lot of people who disagree, and they think the pendulum is swinging to the Buffalo Bills. How big of a challenge? I mean, and look, I know we got a long way to go before we're thinking about games, and there's so much to do between now and then. But how do you process that as an organization? How do you balance this reality that there's going to be a lot of people that look at the Buffalo Bills and say, now's their time to take that next step and really take over this division?
Yeah, it's a good question. I understand it, but I think off seasons and things like that are one on paper. They don't mean anything. Just like our 10 wins, Mike, last year. Last year is in the past. This is a new season. Once it happens, a new team, and until you knock off the champ, you're not the champ. And I know Miami and the Jets will be thinking the same as us. Somebody's got to try and chase the Patriots. And again, Bill Belichick is still there. And this guy won, that team in 2008 won 11 games with Matt Castle, who really didn't have any success anywhere else, but that season. So, he's going to, figure it out who his quarterback is. They're going to play sound defense. They've got a lot of players there. I find it, as I said last week, I find it comical that people are writing them off. I understand on paper what things look like, but until somebody beats the Patriots, they're the champs.
And look, for every team except the team that wins the Super Bowl, the last game of the season is a disappointment. Your disappointment came in the wild card round, and I want to spin this into a positive. Based upon your review of the game against the Texans, what comes out of there to you? What stands out as the thing that you could take to Josh Allen and say, here's what we can use as the impetus for taking your game to the next level?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that I look at is when your season ends early, unless you're holding up the trophy, especially if you make the playoffs, usually how you lose that game in the playoffs usually is an indicator of what your issues were during the season. And our issues, Mike, were we couldn't consistently score enough points. And we looked at wide receivers at the trade deadline. We weren't able to agree on a deal or anything like that. But I just felt like we still needed someone opposite John Brown and Cole Beasley, and hence the move for Diggs. But I think that will help Josh. I think late in that game, Josh probably tried to do too much at times, and that's what you love about him. He's a competitor. He is not afraid, to have the ball in his hands, at key moments, and so I'm not upset at Josh Allen at all. I think he was just trying to do too much at times. And again, we settled for field goals too often in that game where we should have got touchdowns. And I think another weapon like Stephon Diggs and any other pieces that we're able to add will only help our offense going forward.
Hey, Brandon, I appreciate so much of your time. I know you got a lot to do. We wish you all the best as the draft approaches. And if you're bored the first night, give me a call. I'll just be hanging out, drinking a beer, watching it, just like you the first night of the draft. Congratulations on the success so far on the Stephon Diggs trade. We're big fans of Stephon, and we think you got a great one there. And we hope to talk to you again down the road.
Thanks, Mike. Keep your family safe.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.